Hello, my wellbeing buddies. Welcome back. It's Steve, and in this session, we're going to cover acceptance and commitment therapy. So, last year, I did an online course with the Association of Psychotherapy, and it was a diploma that involved lots of different types of therapy. And I can understand why people get slightly overwhelmed, because ultimately, when you go to a specialist or you talk to somebody, you're not really sure on the techniques, what they are, or why they're being used. So what I want to do is do a suite of videos so you understand the different types of therapy, how they can be used, and give you a bit more insight to make an informed decision. So we're going to cover acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT. We're going to discuss what it is. We're going to look at how it's used, and we'll talk about some self-help. So acceptance and commitment therapy forms part of psychotherapy, and it combines mindfulness, so we've already done a video on that, and behavioral techniques, so looking at change. And what it does, it's about providing strategies to enable the person to cope. Now, it pretty much is what it says on the tin. It is about accepting a situation and then committing. So, for example, I've had a relationship breakdown. Where do we need to go? Well, let's start with acceptance. Let's just look at where we're at. Let's be non-judgmental and let's just accept. And then once we've done that, we can look at the commitment part, which is looking at that change mechanism. So the techniques of behavioral change strategies will look to give somebody a much more fulfilling life. The goal of acceptance and commitment therapy isn't to eliminate those difficult thoughts or feelings, but rather to teach you how to accept the situation and respond to that situation in a much more adaptive way. So, for example, I haven't done very well on one of my essays. Okay, fine. Getting upset about it, having a meltdown, becoming depressed isn't going to help me. What is going to help me is accepting the fact that I didn't do well and then putting together a plan to drive that forward. So change what I can change is kind of where we're going here. In ACT, so assessment of commitment therapy, clients learn to identify their own values. Now, this is really important because we all have our own value system. So that's what we believe in, our own thoughts, our own values. And some of those values could be built on very strong foundations and be very true. And some of those values may not be so true. And therefore, we may need to be doing a bit of reframing on some of those. But ultimately, we work with to identify and clarify your values, understand what they are, and make sure that those values are meaningful. So if the way that we think and see the world is slightly wrong or off key, that we need help putting those values right first. We also learn to be more mindful. So we learn to be in the present, and being in the present means to be there without judgment, not to be thinking, not to be over feeling, not to be worrying about everything that's going on, but just to be in the now and accept where you are. Acceptance involves acknowledging those feelings and be present with those feelings. So if you are upset, allow yourself to be upset. Don't overthink it. Don't allow, don't become judgmental on it all, because then we spiral. Just accept the way that you feel, commit to change, and then move on. And we'll talk about that in a second. Equally, it's about you developing a much more compassionate version towards yourself. So if you have these strong values and these strong belief systems, maybe we need to work on that just to alter them to soften the way that you think and feel. So accepting those attitudes towards your thoughts and emotions will really help you adjust the way that you see the world. Another principle is about commitment. So acceptance is that piece about being non-judgmental. The next part is commitment. So being committed to change. So this involves taking actions towards your values based on your life. So for example, I might say, well, look, okay, I didn't do very well in that exam. Fine. I'm going to learn from that. But what am I going to do to change? I need to commit to something. Bring in my problem solving skills, bring in my coping skills, bring in some planning skills. What am I going to do to change? because the definition of madness is doing the same thing over again and expecting a different outcome. So look at your commitment to change, list some of those, but make sure the change aligns with your values, and make sure those goals are small and measurable. Because if you do a big change, you're probably going to fail at it, not because you're hopeless, but because we set ourselves up to fail. We put something in front of us which is too big. And what we do, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We fail on that, and therefore we go back to, I'm a failure, I'm no good. Where if we did a small goal, I'm going to study for 15 minutes today, I can achieve that. And by studying 15 minutes each day, it will give me enough time to pick up my skills by the end of that week. And by the end of the week, I should be able to do X, Y, Z, tick. But if I don't set those goals, then I'm going to fail at the end of the week, and then I'm going to feel like I failed. So what we're saying here is acceptance, be in the present, be non-judgmental, commitment, look to change. So overall, acceptance as a commitment is a strength-based approach. It focuses on promoting your psychology, and it's got flexibility and resilience. So it's all about building up your inner strength and not being hard on yourself. By doing this, you are going to be able to manage your mental health better. And that may include things such as anxiety. So if you panic about going out, accept the fact that you're going to panic. So don't panic about panicking, accept the fact that you're going to panic. But what are we going to do to change that situation? What can we focus on? What's the small steps? And it might be the fact that you're just going to go 5 minutes, use those distraction techniques, listen to music, look at some grounding skills, and that gets you over the first 5 minutes of being outside. Then the next day we might go to 10 minutes, and the next day we go to 15. So they're the small goals we're talking about with acceptance and commitment therapy. And again, that could work around depression. You know, today I feel rubbish. I'm not going to self-care, but I'm going to set myself some goals. So Monday I might brush my teeth. Tuesday I might have a shave. Wednesday I might have a shower. So I'm not going to do it all in one go because I haven't got the energy or the strength, but I will just do one thing. So here's an example about how acceptance and commitment therapy will work in a therapy session. So imagine we've got a client and her name's Sarah. She's struggling with anxiety and social phobia. She's speaking of her fear, and because of that, she avoids social situations where possible. It makes her feel stuck. She feels unhappy with her life. So that's where we're at. In the acceptance and commitment therapy session, what we're looking for is to maybe use some mindfulness exercises. That's the acceptance part, going down to that grounding skill, being present without judgment. So I'm not going to overthink. I'm just here, going to get through this. The therapist might guide Sarah through that mindfulness exercise. So again, if you can't afford therapy, we've done these mindfulness exercises and we've done some guided meditation stuff. And that's just to focus on the breath, manage the physical symptoms of anxiety, and allow those emotions to arise, come and go. Then in the next session, we're going to identify her values. So what's important to her and what allows her to grow and be strong and be resilient. So again, we can now work on some of those values and embed that in. We may help Sarah to set specific goals. So at this point, she may find problem solving difficult or coping skills difficult. Again, watch the other videos. And then we can look at setting goals to attending social events. So very small, but they need to be meaningful in conversation and obviously a bit of dialogue there. Sarah can then work towards those baby step goals, building her resilience up, recognizing her acceptance around her anxiety, accepting those thoughts without feeling, because she's going to feel overwhelmed, it's going to come up, but she's going to use those techniques, those breathing skills, progressive muscle relaxation, all of that stuff to manage that anxiety. And throughout the therapy session, we're going to help her and focus her back in on the values to making sure that she feels she's able to do this. And again, that's just about managing those emotions well. So overall, the goal here is to help Sarah develop those psychological flexible resistance to allow her to accept the situation. I'm going to get anxious. I'm going to commit to those small changes. It's those small changes that are going to help me improve my emotional and well-being. And again, that then reinforces that cognition of negativity and turns it into a positive thought. So let's just say, okay, Steve, that all sounds very well and good, but you did talk a lot about therapy there, and I can't afford to go to therapy. Well, here's some things that you can do for a self-help approach. And I'm going to pop these in the box below, so you don't need to worry about making notes. It's all going to be in there. So just identify your values. So in other words, what's important to you in your life? Make a list of those values, such as your family, your health, your spirituality, etc. Practice mindfulness, because mindfulness is at the core of acceptance and commitment therapy. And if you practice mindfulness, you are going to be able to be in a situation where you are able to be present without being judgmental. So it stops that overthinking, it stops that panic attack, and it just keeps you nice and calm. Recognize and accept those difficult thoughts and emotions. So don't try and hide them, just recognize them and let them pass through you. So we love a metaphor. We call it the constant you. It's the blue sky. That's the constant you. What happens is the clouds come along, they block you, but just know those clouds pass. What happens with acceptance commitment therapy, if you don't allow them to pass, they block up. And what happens when clouds block? You get a thunderstorm. You keep going, you're going to get a hurricane. You keep going, you're going to get tornadoes. And we can see that's how it works. So ultimately, accept where you're at, allow those feelings to pass non-judgmentally, and then take deep breaths. And then, congratulate yourself, pat yourself on the back, have a little reward system. Reframe those thoughts, positive self-thinking, all of this stuff. So take actions towards your values, even though they're small steps, and look at those small steps and try and exercise every day for 30 minutes. Build up your psychological flexibility. So in other words, in your brain, when you're saying, I can't do this, try positive self-thinking. I can't do this to I can do this. Just try a bit of flexible thinking. Because ultimately, we set our own parameters around what we can and cannot do. And then ultimately, if you're still struggling with that, then do seek professional help. But acceptance and commitment therapy is a really helpful approach to managing mental health. And it helps us when we have drama in our lives. So if we have a change cycle, something's come up, we weren't ready for that, we feel overwhelmed, acceptance and commitment therapy is a great way to manage those feelings and emotions. If you work with people with mental health, this is a great way round to supporting people, just to get them to understand a bit about what's going on up there, and to allow them that space and that time to accept the way that they feel and to provide strategies to move forward. Anyway, I hope you found that useful. You can always find out more if you go online. And again, if you talk to any registered therapist, and notice the word that I said registered, or mental health practitioner, they will be able to give you a bit more information about acceptance and commitment therapy. Hopefully you found that session useful. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.